All right. Sorry, I couldn't see you, so I wanted to make sure we got it.
Yeah, you're good. Awesome. And I have Tiffany High here on the podcast today, and I'm excited to have you on the podcast, Tiffany. You and your husband run a very successful real estate wholesaling operation in Ohio. And I'm really excited to have you on today. So I appreciate your time.
Yeah, I'm excited to add some value here and
Yeah, let's go.
yeah, let's go.
Awesome. So we're gonna jump right into it, Tiffany. I mean, we're um, in the real estate wholesaling space. There's a lot of stuff out there on social media, a lot of one-man shops, one-man teams, and there's also a lot of people that are wanting to grow their business and scale the operation. I feel like that is a really, really challenging thing to do, and I'm going through that process myself. And so I want to really dive into what you guys are doing in your business because I feel like it's very rare in our space to be able to have the infrastructure and but the leadership component as well. So let's kind of start with where you guys started in your business, a quick, 1 or 2 minute snapshot, and then where you guys are now with your team.
Yeah. So we started, well, I was back in my corporate career for about 10 to 15 years. And about 6 years ago, not to go into too much detail, but I'm the oldest of 4 kids. My youngest brother, who was still in high school, got diagnosed with cancer. And my other siblings were younger than him. So, I got a phone call, found out he had cancer, and like immediately knew as the oldest child, I needed to help take responsibility of helping my family. And when I left my corporate career, it literally had nothing to do with not loving my career. Like to this day, if it wasn't for this story, I would still be, moving up the corporate career because I loved it. It had nothing to do with that. So I think, and we'll get to this in a minute because I think that ultimately, it takes a lot to own a company, and it's not, always meant for everyone. And we really need to define our own happiness and success and go after what that is and not feel like we have to own it, if that makes sense.
Right.
But anyway, so he was in the hospital for a year. And about 5 months into that journey, I was traveling by plane in my corporate career Monday through Friday at a minimum. And so I could only go make it to the hospital on the weekends. And I remember about 5 months in, I was sitting there on a Sunday right before Easter. And I looked at my parents and I'm like, how have you literally not left the hospital in 5 months? Like they physically never left.
Hmm.
And they owned like 4 or 5 companies at the time. And I'm like, how is that even possible? And their response immediately was, well, our team stepped it up for us. Like, we have teams that can manage this and they're being there for us during this time.
Oh,
And, that like that moment will never leave my head. I can visualize it. Like as if I was still sitting there. But something was telling me, in that moment that, cause I had a vision of having like 4 or 5 kids at the time. And I was like, well, I can never be a good mom if I'm traveling Monday through Saturday, basically on a plane. Like it's just not
right.
even possible. And I was moving up this executive path where that's just going to keep getting worse.
Right.
But that didn't mean I didn't enjoy what I was doing. And so I prayed about it. And on Good Friday of Easter, I felt like God was telling me to just take a chance and leave my job and figure it out. And I
Wow.
actually had no idea I was getting into real estate. I was a lost soul for a little while. For a couple of months, I started bartending. I was doing all these things and I'm like, well, this isn't it. This isn't it. This isn't it. And then I just happened to be a private lender. And when I say a private lender, I was lending at the time, like, I don't know, 50 grand of my corporate bonuses, to a flipper that was, local. And so one day I said, hey, can I go see this flip that you're doing? I was bored. I had nothing going on. And he walks me through and he shows me the before and afters. And I was like, wait a second, you're going to make $80,000 on this. Little did I know how much of a pain in the ass doing a flip that size was
Yes.
at the
Yeah.
time. But I was like, well, how did you learn? So he told me an education program that he joined. And so literally I didn't even question it. Like that day I dropped 25 grand on my credit card, maxed out my credit card. And I said, health, and maybe this is the answer. Like, I didn't know the answer. And so from there, I stayed up every night watching videos, all that stuff. And then, it took me 6 months to find my first deal. and I blew thousands of dollars. I mean, in that meantime, every penny that I ever saved, I pretty much blew. And I was very inconsistent, and I did everything the opposite of what my coaches were telling me. So like, I was in the shoes of what a lot of people go through where, they take 3 or 5 grand and they throw it at something and they're like, oh, I hope I get a deal out of this.
Right, right.
And I didn't understand how to backtrack the numbers. Like I was never properly taught at that time how to be like, hey, if I want 3 deals this month, how many cold callers do I need, or how much mail do I need? Unfortunately, the program I had joined was like, just spend money.
Right.
And that's really not how this works. So I literally, I looked at Josh, who's now my husband, obviously. And I said, I'm giving this 10 days. Like, if I don't have a house in 10 days, like, this is not worth it for me. Like, I'm not even happy. It was a grind. Had anxiety. And anyways, we ended up getting a house within the 10 days and made tons of mistakes, made 18 grand on that first house. And then we took on a gut rehab after that, lost 106 grand, by the way, on that one.
Oh my God.
And so my first like 4 or 5 deals were just like an emotional wreck.
Yeah.
So long story short, after I lost the 106 grand, I was like, hell with this. Like, I'm going, like, I don't want this risk. And my dad happened to call me that day as I was literally like calling my parents, telling them, look, I lost 106 grand. I have no money and I'm going to move back in with you guys because I literally can't survive.
Wow.
And my dad called me separately and he was like, go into your bedroom and call me back. So I called him and he's like, Tiffany, you've already learned what not to do. You can do this. Keep going. And if he wouldn't have told me that in that moment, I wouldn't be where I'm at right now. Cause I was like, why would I keep doing this? Like, this is so stressful.
Right.
And so after that phone call, I had no option but to make money. Like there was no more options of losing money. The money wasn't there to be lost.
Right.
So for the next 12 months, we did 40 rehabs and we did it all on pen and paper. And I had no system, CRM. I didn't have a phone, whatever. So for everyone listening to this that thinks they need all these perfect things to make $1 million, it's all just an excuse in your head.
That's right.
So after that, I didn't even know what wholesaling was. And on, a year into it, I'm still stressed out at this point because we all know just rehabbing is super stressful.
It's terrible.
Yeah. So, well, it was for me then. Now we're pretty streamlined. But anyway, so I wake up. It's literally 2 a.m. I can't sleep. And I tap Josh on the shoulder and I'm like, hey, I hope you don't mind, but I'm about to max out our credit card again. And I'm going to go figure out what this wholesaling shit is that everyone talks about. So I go to an event and I'm sitting in the second row and everyone in there is doing tons of wholesaling and deal flow and all this stuff. And, after a day into the event, I raise my hand and I'm like, everyone keeps talking about assignments. Like, what is an assignment? And everyone looks at me and is like, who is this person?
Yeah.
So anyways, I had 5 houses in contract to rehab that day. And I left that event and I made $250,000 wholesaling them instead of rehabbing them when I got home within 30 days.
Crap.
And after I learned the power of building systems and infrastructure to scale wholesaling alongside rehabbing, we did 165 wholesales the next year, built this big team, which came crashing down, which I can talk about later. And then we had to rebuild the team essentially. And now we do, 300 plus deals a year and the rest is history.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, in that journey, I got a lot of good advice and a lot of really bad advice in the industry as well. And, I think the reason, in my opinion, you see a lot of people that can't scale is because they're joining programs where the people teaching them have never even worked in a corporate environment. They've never managed teams. They've never done these things. They just happen to be a grinder wholesaling and build a following. And now all these people are trying to learn off of them.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's powerful, Tiffany. There are so many golden nuggets there. A lot. I mean, the first thing is not quitting. I mean, which a lot of people we've all talked about, but is pushing through the challenges. But what you said about reverse engineering, instead of just throwing money and seeing what sticks. It's knowing your numbers, reverse engineering, and saying, hey, look, if I spend this, I should expect this, and kind of having a data approach versus just a freestyle approach, which I think is, we need more of that in our industry. Because I think a lot of people, I talk to a lot of guys as well, where it's these are all like, they've done one or two deals, and they're like, well, I spent 10 grand and I lost all my savings. I'm like, number one, if you only have 10 grand, I would not go just blow it without at least having some sort of game plan. But I think it happens a lot. And like you said, a lot of people that are teaching these courses, they don't have any leadership background or management background. And I feel like in our space, we often like frown upon, we want to have the open-ended lifestyle where you can just kind of, freestyle but I feel like we need more of strong leadership, executive management. And you having that corporate background obviously paid dividends into what you guys are doing now. So you started off rehabbing 40 rehabs. That sounds like a nightmare. You know what I mean? But I know you guys have systems now. So you went through the pain of doing the rehabs, and you kind of stumbled into wholesaling. What did it look like starting off in your wholesaling journey, building a team? Obviously, you guys started off wholesaling. I'm assuming you were doing it with just you and your husband, Josh, or did you already hire out? How did that process start?
From day one of starting the company, I hired an admin because I
Okay.
knew automatically that my skill set was in making money. So like my time being spent on QuickBooks or doing marketing or whatever, and I shouldn't say doing marketing, but doing tasks that didn't make money, like immediately I was smart enough to know not to do that stuff.
That's huge. Yeah.
And then right after that, we hired an acquisition manager. And this was about 6 months into the journey of like, I should say a year, because it took us 6 months to find a deal. But once we found that deal, I knew the power of building teams from my corporate life. Like, it's not about grinding and hustling and getting more deals. It's about like the one that wins in the industry is who knows how to leverage. And when I say leverage, it's like this person and this person can have, two people can have the same skill set. They can both be the best closers. They can have all the same experience and all the stuff. But if this person hires 20 salespeople and this person keeps doing it on their own, guess who's going to win? The one with 20 salespeople.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Um, and so I think a lot of people coming into the industry, and I think it's a result of how the gurus are teaching it in the industry because they didn't come from corporate backgrounds, nor do they have corporate leadership or anyone else in place.
Right.
And so you see a lot of people stay 1 to 5-man shows at max because of the fear of overhead. People think that, oh, if I hire someone, this is overhead.
Right.
Hiring someone to me is an ROI. Every human being
Mm.
in your company should be bringing in an ROI to the company.
It's huge.
Even the admin frees my time to go make more money. So when I made a decision on a different company I own to hire someone at, $75,000, it was overpaying that role compared to industry standard. But I said, well, if my time's released, my time is worth 7 to 10 grand an hour at that time.
Right.
So I
Right.
have to look at it differently.
Wow.
And I just think that, I don't know what has instilled the fear into the industry or if it's, every industry is like this. But I just think we're famous in our industry for staying small because of how we're being taught.
That's huge, Tiffany. And it's like it's a mindset, and everything you said was, if I hire someone, it's an investment in my company. But what I have seen that's in our space is, there was a Houston event here, and it was a good event, but there was a lot of narratives like, you don't hire in-house because they're going to take your business and they're going to leave and they're going to steal your deals. And I'm like, if you're thinking that
Who said
small,
that?
a lot of people
Okay. I mean, if somebody on stage said that, I would literally grab the microphone and say, "You're fucking fired from being the guru. Get the hell off the
Thank
stage."
you. Thank you. Yeah. And
Okay.
that happened on stage. Yeah. And then it was the mindset of, you need to hire VAs because you can control VAs. And then, but to me, it's if you're already coming from that mindset that you're scared to bring people in, there's no way you can scale a business that way, And I just think that is getting pushed a lot with just everything's remote, because people are going to come in and
No.
they're going to leave
Well,
you.
you want
And
me to go on a tangent about that?
Please. Yes. Yes.
Okay. So what I see common in the industry, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong, because I also have several virtual assistants, by the way.
Right. Right.
But when it comes to core people within your company, the reason why there are some people in the industry that say hire everything out is because they don't know how to hire people and get them bought into a vision.
That's right.
And go talk to anyone worth 20, 50, $100 million. They ain't hiring out key employees overseas. Like that ain't happening
Exactly. Nope.
unless they're software developers.
Right.
You build a culture internally. And if you are only good at hiring in VAs because their culture is you tell them what to do and they do, that
Right.
just means that you don't know how to build a culture.
That's right.
And a culture is what drives results.
Absolutely.
So as a leader, it is our job to put a culture in place, drive that culture, and it will naturally drive results through people.
That's right.
And I think, in my opinion, that a lot of people resort to having these virtual assistants be core key roles. And I probably should just stop talking because you're probably gonna put this online. I'm gonna get in trouble. But
No, I love it. I love it. This is all truth, by the way.
but they have these key roles. But here's the reality. Some people think, oh, it's easier. It's not fucking easier to manage VAs. Here's the thing. When someone's sitting across the office from you and you have a sales manager that hears and is collaborating on a floor, the speed of communication there, you can manage
Absolutely.
energy, you can manage culture.
Absolutely.
You cannot lose an opportunity in the moment versus after the fact. So if you have virtual assistants, assuming you're actually like managing them the right way and you're listening to
Right.
all their audits and films and all the stuff, then after the fact, you're missing the opportunity and coaching it after you already missed it. If you
Right.
had them in the office as a closer, the speed of communication is 10x, which is worth millions of dollars, by the way.
Absolutely.
And so
100%.
it's like this fear of managing people. And then some people are like, oh, I used to have people in the office. It didn't work. So I just took it all virtual. Well,
Yeah,
that's a you problem.
that's
That's
right.
a you problem because you can't build culture and you can't get people to stay with you. That's a leadership problem. That's not a
100%.
them problem. That's a us problem.
Absolutely.
And so whenever people are like, I want to be fully virtual, I want this lifestyle, you can still have that lifestyle. You bring
Right.
in people that drive the business forward and you can still take vacations. You can still go do these things
Right.
and work alongside people. Like the one thing about our industry is, we're talking to distressed people all day. So
Yes.
like imagine being that closer or that person, whether you're in Mexico, Philippines, the US, it doesn't matter, and you're talking to someone cussing you out and talking about all their life problems all fucking day.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, I should be excited and have energy to work for this company. Like,
Right.
that's not exciting.
No, it's
But if
not.
you
It's
put
yeah.
them in an office environment where they got a bunch of their buddies now sitting next to them having those calls, they get off that call where someone just said, fuck you, and they can tap the shoulder and be like, oh man, did you hear that? Like, this is hilarious.
Yep.
And
Yep.
then it helps keep the energy high versus sitting in the bedroom working in my underwear and trying to build a vision with people.
Absolutely. I love it, Tiffany. That everything you're saying is so spot on. I'm glad you're saying it because I feel internally that's exactly how I have felt, and I'm in the process of working to build a business, to get to kind of where you guys are at one day. And it's when you're out there seeking and you're okay, who do I model? Who's the and it's like there's not very many people. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you here on the podcast. I'm like, man, they're doing awesome stuff. And I just think that's everything you said is spot on. But I also feel like the way our industry is going, that in the next 5 or 6 years, and I could be wrong, I feel like it's kind of developing into where it's just a bunch of teams. Like it's kind of going into I feel like the teams are going to be the businesses that scoop up most of the opportunities. I could be wrong, but I feel like it's kind of going, kind of like with the retail side of real estate. You have brokerages and teams and things like that. So I just feel like that's the model. So with you guys doing 300 plus, deals a year, what does your team look like, infrastructure wise, is in the office and just overall?
Yep, we have a sales manager, 3 closers, 2 follow-up specialists that are all sitting physically in the office, and then we float between 2 and 3 follow-up specialists overseas. Those people are calling older leads in our system and bringing them back to life. We have an operations coordinator, which most people call their transaction coordinator. She handles all of our transactions, but she also virtually manages all of our rehabs because we have them very streamlined.
Right.
So I call her an operations coordinator instead of a TC because of that. And then Josh is the COO, and then Dispo. Everything else outside of those core roles are virtual. So I have all
Gotcha.
my key roles that bring in the money to the company in my physical office.
Wow. That's so it sounds like there's maybe what, 7 or 8, 9 people in office. Is that kind of right? Or
Yeah, something like that for the
okay.
active side.
That's really impressive that that team is producing the volume that you guys are doing. Obviously, it's a testament to your systems and your processes. What were some of the biggest challenges on finding the right talent? I mean, obviously that's a skill in a process in itself, but what were kind of the challenges when you were kind of trying to find the right team members in the beginning?
Yeah, I mean, keep in mind that's not just the size of my team. We have several virtual assistants that are like key core roles, but I
Okay.
don't need them in the office because they don't produce the income. So
Right.
like that's not just the size of my team, but I always make the highest income producing roles physically in my office.
Right. Okay.
Um, the challenges, what was the question again?
The challenges on finding the right talent,
Okay, so one of the big things I always tell people is your people in your office should be the biggest advocate for your company. How do you drive that? You get them to want to bring in their friends or people that they know or a friend of friend. And the biggest way we've been able to bring in talent is through a referral program. So if someone has refer someone into the company, whether you work for me or you're a friend, you can refer them in on day. We have a 30, 60, 90-day expectation for closers or follow-up specialists. And we onboard them for the first 5 to 10 days on a very strict onboarding. So that time period is not counted. Once this is the first day they hit the phones, on day 30, 60, and 90, they have very clear-cut expectations that they sign before they accept the role, that they know and understand what they have to hit. If they hit the 30-day expectation, then that person gets the first $1,000. If they hit the 90-day expectation, then they get the rest of the 4,000. So it's essentially a $5,000 bonus, but only if you bring someone in who performs.
Right.
So we'll know within 30, 60, 90 days if someone's going to perform at that point.
That's huge.
So that's why instead of paying recruiting firms, which by the way, we also use recruiting firms alongside us, like I'm not taking phone interviews. I'm not doing Indeed. That shit's worth $10 an hour.
Yeah.
So for everyone listening to this, if that's what you're doing, you're already on the wrong track. Like,
Right.
I know there's a bunch of people out there trying to teach you how to put Indeed ads up and all that. But the reality is if you could spend that 5 hours on the phone and get a $30,000 deal, you can pay for someone's salary to do that for the whole year.
100%.
So we need to focus on leveraging, resources, people, companies to get people in seats. And then honestly, if you create a culture and an environment that people thrive off of and in love who they're working with, you're not going to have turnover.
Absolutely.
I haven't lost someone on my active side in 2 or 3 years at least.
That's amazing. Wow. That's rare. Well, I think that's rare in any industry right now with the way the marketplace is with all kind of different factors, and then especially rare in the wholesaling space. What you know, you said you can pretty much know in 30 days if someone's going to have success, right? What are you looking for in a salesperson, so to speak? I mean, is there do they need to have a lot of sales experience and
No,
background? Okay.
I don't want them to have any real estate experience, and I don't even care if they have sales experience. My top 3 closers were, one was a laborer for a contractor, one worked at an eyeglass shop, and one was cleaning houses before they worked for us. When you have a really good onboarding system, you can turn anyone into a fucking closer.
Wow.
And I think that people think they have to go recruit all these people that already come in wanting and demanding 6 figures or whatever, and that'll never work.
Right.
But if you put together the right onboarding training, ongoing training, weekly audits, performance reviews, and you put in the infrastructure for them to grow, they will become closers quickly.
That's huge.
And so I think it's just people typically tend to resort to having to think they have to bring on all this high talent because they don't have the infrastructure to support it. So they think, oh, if I can bring in this one-off person who can make sales and art and not a science, then they'll make me $1 million and I can get away with being a poor leader and not having infrastructure.
That's huge. That's so true. That's really, really cool. I mean, I think that's also one of the biggest challenges. We think that you have to go hire the high performing sales guy from a different company, and then they come in and then, hiring. By the way, I've made the mistake. I've hired real estate agents. That shit does not work. That
I
shit
could have
does,
told you that.
that shit does not work. I mean, it was like massive. Actually, they did worse than some of the other people that I've hired. So, yeah, a lot of experiences right there. So that's some key stuff. Let's talk about, and we'll finish up with this because I really want to kind of give a high level overview of y'all's 2-day workshop. What does it look like? Is it only in Ohio? Do you travel? What do you guys go over? What does that kind of look like with you guys?
Yep. So I'm going to give you high level of our program in general. So we have three
Okay.
things. We have what we call the virtual group, the 2-day workshop, and a 6-month program. So we require people follow the process. I don't give a shit if someone's doing 2 deals a month or 30 deals a month. Like, everyone has to follow the process. So in the virtual group, it's all about the foundation. So week 1 and week 2, it's 4 weeks live with us virtually over Zoom. And it's all about what data I'm pulling, how I'm managing it, stacking it, launching it, every marketing campaign, the cash conversion cycles, how to reverse engineer your marketing,
Mm,
etc. Week 3, Josh gets on and talks about the sales script process because we do 95 to 98% of our deals over the phone. And
right.
then week 4 is our dispo processes. And so before I take you to the 2-day workshop and throw fuel in the fire and teach you how to build a team, I need to make sure we clean up anything that you possibly need in your foundation. Even myself, I always have something to optimize, which is why, even though my team is against me doing this live every month instead of evergreening it, every single month I'm getting better at something that I want to
Right.
share with people live.
Absolutely.
Then the 2-day workshop is where we teach people how to throw fuel in the fire and how you recruit, onboard, train, and manage the day-to-day business of bringing on people, putting in the weekly one-on-ones, the weekly call audits, how they're done, the scorecards. How do we hold people accountable to numbers and move the needle forward and build the culture that drives results?
Right.
Then we have a 6-month program where we then hold your hand. And nothing irks me more than calling something a mastermind. So it is not a mastermind.
Right.
It is not one of those programs where it's like one person on a Zoom to 400 people. I don't believe
Yeah.
in that shit.
Yeah.
So in the 6-month program, we built an entire staff where they had to have 8 to 10 years of sales management experience to even work here. And they hold the hands and they become like fractional sales managers for people and their teams. And we do a combination of group and one-on-one coaching, not just for the owner, but for their teams as well,
Mm,
so that we can drive the needle forward. So if we can help keep your sales team consistent, that allows you to keep driving the needle forward to hiring more people, onboarding all this, because what people don't realize is that if I'm the owner and I go hire 3 acquisitions people, guess what happens? Yeah, I might be getting deals and more revenue, but I'm just wearing more and more hats because
that's
I've yet
right.
to put a leader in place.
That's right.
And
Yep.
so I'm still managing all these other operational bullshit
Yes.
things because I brought on more people that drive more deals and I didn't put a leader in place that now manages them for me.
Right.
And so our goal in the 6-month is that we get you to that. And when you leave the 2-day, I don't hold anything back. It's sheerly content. There's no fluff. I'm not here to grow your mindset.
Right.
I don't believe in having to motivate you. If you're not motivated, don't come to my event.
Exactly.
So at the event, it's, very content driven. It's exactly how we operate. But the reality is what makes or breaks people in this industry is you can't just wake up tomorrow and become the leader that you need to become. If you haven't been there yet, you need help in the industry by a mentor who's already been there, done that,
Right.
on how you get from here to where you're trying to go, because that requires you to become someone that you're not yet today.
Mm,
And so if you've never been there, you don't know what you don't know. And if you don't get your hand held to get there, I guarantee in 6 months, 12 months, 2 years, you're going to keep waking up and wondering why I keep falling backwards. I move forward, I keep falling backwards. And I'm in the
right.
same fucking spot I was, a year ago as I am today, because I'm not investing into a mentor that teaches me the infrastructure that moves my needle forward.
Right.
So although I can show you all of that at the 2-day, and there's always a percentage of people that go back and say, oh, I can do this on my own. great, go for it. Call me in 6 months and tell me how you became a leader on your own.
Exactly.
Or you can join the 6-month program and we hold your hand through multiple different coaching ways for not just you, but your staff to help take off that hat for you.
Right.
So that's really how we drove the program forward.
That's huge. That's awesome, Tiffany. That is out of all of the courses and workshops out there, that's just a lot of it's just meat and potatoes, right? Like it's substance. And I feel like that's what people that were wanting to actually grow a business, like you said, if you want to grow a big business and have a team, I'm hoping you're already motivated. You shouldn't need Tony Robbins, right? That's a whole different thing. It sounds like it's a very streamlined process that starts at the bottom and kind of works up to the top, which I think is super, super valuable. So we'll cap off here. What's the ultimate vision for you and your companies? Where, obviously I know there's probably not an end goal, so to speak, but like where does y'all's real estate business kind of go in the next 5 years?
Yeah, I mean, on the real estate side, I'm really focused on building a bigger rental portfolio right now.
Okay.
In terms of like the flipping and wholesaling, I've stabilized it out. I don't need to do like a shit ton more deals. I need to hold a lot more houses.
Yes.
But my mission right now and my vision is that, 4 years ago when I got a bunch of bad advice in the industry, it drove me to a hospital where I had to stay 3 nights and I almost lost my life
Mm,
because I was full of anxiety. I was in depression. I was building it wrong. I didn't know how to build infrastructure. I didn't know how to do all these things. And although I believed in myself, I didn't know what I didn't know and I didn't know how to do it. And
right.
it's my fucking vision and mission to make sure that everyone in this industry that's trying to do the same, they don't run into the same bad advice and they get the infrastructure and the hand holding that they need to do it the right way from the start so that you don't wake up one day and have to fire everyone in your company like I did and have to start back over from the bottom.
Right.
And that's really my vision right now.
Wow. That's powerful. That's powerful. And I think that's what we need. We need more of that in our space. There's so much bullshit out there, I mean, and I try not to get too frustrated with it, but in this, I've been in real estate for 5 years and I'm just now kind of building a little bit of a team and things like this, but just, you meet so many different people in the space and you're like, man, it's like 95% fluff and bullshit, and
Yep.
so I really appreciate with you and what you and your husband are doing in y'all's company and also helping other people do that. And I appreciate your time, Tiffany. So I know you got to go, you got a
Yep.
big
I
meeting.
gotta.
Yeah, but I really appreciate it. And I'm going to stay connected with you and I'll be reaching out soon as well.
Awesome. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.